Well, hello everybody. My name's Howie Heckman. I'm one of the developers here at PTS. Thanks for joining us on today's webinar. It's a feature-focused webinar on our RFID quick scan feature within the ClearStream application, also known as like a keyboard emulation or keyboard wedge. And I'll go through a live demonstration of this feature today. As always, we'll have a question and answer period at the end of the webinar. So again, thanks for joining us. The agenda really is just to talk a little bit about what ClearStream RFID is for anybody that's new to the product, as well as the feature for RFID quick scan, do a live demo of it, and then as always, we have a question and answer period at the end of the demonstration. So if you guys have any questions, please send them over in the question panel of the GoToWebinar toolbar there, and I'll try to get to as many as possible. As always, if you have any follow-up questions to that after the webinar, reach out to us and we can get you the answers you'd like. Before we get started, I'd just like to note to everybody to follow us on our social media pages. This is where you'll find all of kind of the latest release announcements, feature-focused webinars like we do today, as well as any videos that we put out for our different products and different features of our software. So if you can, please sign up there and take a look around. It's always got some good, useful information on those different platforms. So a little also introduction to portable technology solutions. So we've been around since 2000. We develop barcode, RFID, NFC, and BLE scanning software for mobile devices on the Android, iOS, and Windows platforms with our Tracer Plus product. And then we have a product, ClearStream RFID, which is what we'll be talking about today, which runs on fixed RFID readers or connects to fixed RFID readers, as well as Bluetooth gateways for scanning Bluetooth beacons. And we have another platform called the PTS Cloud that's a customizable solution that can kind of fully integrate our software to a cloud-based system for data collection. So all of our products are no programming involved. They're just kind of set up and go for, again, mobile applications on iOS and Android platforms, as well as the fixed RFID side with our ClearStream product, which is what we'll be showing today. So a little bit about what ClearStream RFID is. So ClearStream RFID is really a routing tool for fixed RFID data for UHF readers, HF scanners. It really is a middleware that sits between the different devices that you may have on your network for this data collection. So RFID scanning, BLE scanning, and a backend system. So there's no programming involved in the application. You're just mapping these readers on your environment to these pre-existing systems, and then controlling when and how that tag data that's collected within your environment gets hooked up and sent to the database of your choosing. That database can be something that's in-house system that you have, so you can leverage the technology for RFID scanning as well as BLE beacons and add it onto a pre-existing system. Or like I mentioned before, it could be something that hooks up to our customizable PTS Cloud that maybe if you don't have the infrastructure in place, you could map these systems into that PTS Cloud and then get that data into that system so that you have access to it there. And really, it's a cross-platform application. So you can set it up for really anything that you'd like to track. It could be for personnel tracking, asset tracking. On the BLE side, it could be doing zone locationing, so you can see high-value assets, where they are in your facility and things like that. As always, there's no programming in any of this. You're point and clicking, finding these devices on your network, and then mapping them to that location of where you'd like to send your tag data. And there's all sorts of features for how and when that data gets integrated into your system so that you're capturing only the data you need in your environment to your backend database. And last actual note here, it's really unmatched time to benefit and live within hours. So one of the things we strive to do with our products is really give you the ability to get up and running very quickly with these different technologies, so that you can install a free trial from our website, download the free trial, hook up an RFID reader, and see that data flowing into your system almost immediately. So we try to give you those features and give you that feedback immediately to see how the technology will work in your environment. And actually, with this quick scan feature, it's really, really easy because you don't necessarily even need a backend system. You can see this tag data collection going into any application. Could be Microsoft Excel, Notepad, QuickBooks, anything like that. You can collect that data and see it in real time hitting your system. So a little bit about what is quick scan. So again, it's really the ability within ClearStream to map these fixed RFID readers, or really any of the technology that ClearStream supports, into any pre-existing software system that you may have by typing the data that's collected by that fixed RFID reader into that system. So in the demonstration today, I'll show you into legacy software that wasn't necessarily created with RFID in mind, but because of this RFID quick scan feature, you can take that tag data from a fixed RFID reader and input it right into that system. So imagine in the past that you had a QuickBooks application where you're packing material and then you're shipping it out, and you wanted to capture the serial numbers that are going into this box that you're going to ship. You can now actually use fixed RFID to capture that information. Whereas in the past, maybe you had to type it in, you had to have a user enter that data manually, which is very error prone, obviously. This can now take RFID tags that you might have fixed to these products and allows you to scan them, capture them into that legacy software system. So with that, it really solves a lot of problems for systems, legacy systems that may not have had RFID built into that system. So it also leverages the accuracy and speed of that data collection to get that, to decrease errors, get all of that data into those legacy systems with minimal setup. And we'll go through that setup just in the live demonstration here. So it enables users to send this tag data to any software system. And again, it could be something like QuickBooks, Salesforce, NetSuite, really any system where you're just putting this cursor in your field and then scanning that data into that application. So you don't have to develop something in-house for RFID collection into these existing systems. You can utilize this ClearStream product to scan RFID tags, grab that data, and put it into that old system, that legacy system that didn't have RFID compatibility. So the product is compatible with most fixed RFID readers on the market: Zebra and Pinch, Feig, Alien, and many more. And this feature actually works with all of them. So you can go ahead and take the equipment that you have and hook it up to this quick scan to see that data come over. And as always, there's no programming involved with this feature. So with that, I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint and kind of go through a live demonstration of the product. Before I do jump into that, I would like to say that ClearStream RFID is available as a free download and free trial from our website at clearstreamrfid.com. So if you don't have the software already, you can go to our website there, click on the free trial link up on the top right, and you can download all the software that you see today, and you can set it up in just the same way that I am now. And we offer a free trial there, so you can go ahead and set this all up. You can see it all working in your environment and kind of follow along with the webinar here to capture that data into your pre-existing system. So just like to mention that as well. Let's jump over to ClearStream. So I have ClearStream already installed on my system here, and I have a basic project set up that I'm going to go ahead and configure. Now today I thought I'd actually configure two readers. I have a Zebra FX9600 industrial reader that's a UHF RFID scanner, where I'm going to scan UHF RFID tags into an application. But just to show that you can mix and match the technologies, I also have another reader here. It's a Feig MR102 unit, which is actually an HF scanner, which has a pad antenna. So something similar to maybe what you might have seen at like a library or something like that, where you have that pad scanner that you put all the books on top and it scans all of those tags. So it's a similar type scanner to that, where it's a low range, a short read range, and it can scan HF tags into a pre-existing system. And then again, the Zebra FX9600 is scanning UHF tags, so it has a longer read range for UHF RFID tags. So now here is ClearStream RFID. I've installed it on my system here. I don't have really anything configured, and just to talk a little bit about how it's set up. So ClearStream RFID on the left-hand side has a source of tag or Bluetooth beacon data on this source tab side, which I don't have anything configured at the moment. On the destination side is where the tag data is going that's being captured by your device on the left-hand side. So this could be the FX9600, and the destination could be anything from an ODBC database, a SQL Server database, Excel, text files, or custom endpoints, which includes our feature for today, the keyboard emulation or the RFID quick scan. So you're going to go ahead and just select where you'd like that tag data to go so that when the FX9600 or the Feig MR102 unit scans these tags, it's sending it over to the destination. So before I set the destination, I'm just going to configure my two devices here by clicking the device option, device button there. This opens the device configuration window. This is where I'm going to add my readers to my environment. So the first one I'll add is the Zebra unit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add and then select Zebra/Motorola from this drop down here. But you'll see there's a large number of different device types that you can select from. So we have anything from Zebra, Intermec, Impinj, and all of these different devices in this list here so that we support a broad spectrum of different manufacturers. And all of these readers can connect and send tag data to this in this RFID quick scan. We also have an LLRP option. So if you don't see the manufacturer that you have, you can try LLRP if the reader supports it, which is kind of an industry standard for UHF fixed RFID readers for communicating and sending tag data. One thing I would like to mention is actually if you don't have any equipment, you can actually use our emulated reader, which gives you a little environment to drag and drop environment to plan out a floor plan and add readers to it so that you can test it completely within the software here and you don't actually have any physical equipment to scan the tags. But for today's webinar, I was going to go ahead and select the Zebra Motorola device here. Now, the only thing I need to do is either find this by clicking the find button, and then it'll search my network to pick up the device. Or if you know the IP address or host name of the reader, you can go ahead and enter that here. So for my Zebra device, it is 4.204. When you enter that IP address, if it successfully connects with the device, you'll see the device ID or MAC address pop up in this field. For this reader, I'm actually going to give it a different name here. I'm going to call this Room 100. And then the only thing I want to do with this is now we have a lot of tags in our environment, so I want to lower my power level down for this device because I want to create more of a localized read range because I'm scanning into where the cursor is. So I don't necessarily, in this case, want to scan everything in my environment and always be sending tag data into where the cursor is. I want to take UHF tags and place them in front of the antenna so that I scan the tags at that point, and then the tag data goes where I want it to within our application. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and add an antenna here, and I'm just going to put it at the minimum power, 10 dB here, which really will make it almost a contact scan. I have to take these UHF tags and place them in front of the antenna for the equipment to pick it up. Finally, I'm just going to make sure that I only report these tags once while it's sitting on top of the tag. So I'm going to check off this feature here called report again only after not visible, which basically means once the reader reports this tag, don't report it again. I don't want it to keep typing into the field over and over again into the same text box. So that's all I want to do for this reader. I'm going to go ahead and configure the Feig reader at the same time. Now the process is basically the same. I'm going to hit add. I'm going to select Feig from the list here. I'll go ahead and enter the IP address, which is 4.149. It'll connect to that reader. In this case, it gets a different form of device ID, but I have successfully connected to this HF pad scanner. And in this case, I'm going to do the same thing. I just want to turn on report again only after not visible. Now, I don't have to set any antenna power here. It's an HF scanner, so it doesn't have as long of a read range as the UHF reader for the Zebra device. Now, a couple of things to note here. This allows you, this flexibility within ClearStream allows you to read different types of tags. So with UHF, it's obviously EPC Gen 2 tags with long read range, maybe high volume tags that you're scanning. On the HF side, it could be something like just a low-powered HF tags, badge tags, things like that, personnel badge tags, where you have to place them in front of the HF scanner and scan that tag. The two devices won't read each other's tags, but you can utilize these different technologies within ClearStream to capture the different data. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and name it the packing station. So I want to place my products on top of this pad, this HF pad, and scan all of the tags. And that's all I'm going to configure for that. So now I have two devices in my device list, Room 100 and the packing station. On the destination side now, I'm going to select where this is going. So again, this is going to be, for today's demonstration, the quick scan. There are a bunch of different options here. Again, there's you can send them to databases directly, SQL Server, Excel, or text. I'm going to go ahead and select the custom endpoint option. When you do that, there's a couple things that you need to configure here. One is a report. Now, the report is a file that defines how this data is going to look when it's entered into the text field. So there's two reports I'm going to use to demonstrate this, but the first one is actually sends some extra data with each tag. So not only types in the tag ID into my field, but it types in the antenna that it was read on and the reader that read that tag and a date timestamp. Now, it's available in the samples folder when you install ClearStream. So you guys don't actually have to create this file, but you could modify it if you'd like, if you wanted different data typed out into the field when you scan a tag. But you can start with these. So you can go to the samples folder, and I'm going to select the keyboard sample. So the keyboard sample has a couple of fields in the bottom here that's collected for each tag: EPC, date, time, device, antenna, and the tag event. So what I need to do is just marry up the fields from my FX9600 to the fields in this report file here. So it's EPC to EPC, date time to date time, the reader name to device, the antenna to antenna, and finally the tag event to the tag event field. So I'm just marrying up again these fields that are being collected by the reader to the fields in my report that are going to be entered as text data in our where the cursor's blinking. Finally, I need to say where the data that this creates goes. So I'm going to click the endpoint option and hit add and select keyboard emulation, HID here. And that's all I need to configure. So now I have my FX9600 hooked up as a keyboard to my PC. So I have the Room 100 reader married up as a keyboard with these pieces of data that are going to be sent to wherever that text, wherever the cursor is blinking on my PC. EPC, date, time, device, antenna, and tag event. So this is, I'm going to name this one the FX9600. 9600. And we'll go ahead and start this up. So I haven't configured the Feig reader yet, but let's go ahead and see how this looks. So I'm going to go ahead over to the start stop form. I have my two readers here. Let's start with Notepad. I'm just going to go ahead and power up this reader. So I just hit start on the Zebra FX9600. It starts the reader up for scanning. I'll jump over to the Notepad here. And I'm just going to take a handful of readers, tags, and place them in front of the antenna. So there you can see it scanned those three tags that I have in my hand and reported some of this data to our Notepad in this case. So you can see I had that report file, which didn't just capture the tag ID. It captured also the reader name that we configured, the antenna name, which we left as the default, the event that occurred, the new tag visible, as well as the date time stamp of when it was captured. So all of these bits of information were captured with that tag read. If I were to take it again, take these three, it's been 5 seconds, I'm going to put them back over. I can read those same three tags again right into this application. So just to illustrate that up more, I'll pull out the Notepad. I'm going to do it right into Excel. So I'll just put my cursor into, Excel seems to be, okay, let's not use Excel. It sort of crashed on me. Thank you, Microsoft Excel. Okay, so just to illustrate it again, I will bring my Notepad back over and scan these tags again into Notepad. Okay, so that captures that tag data into this application here, along with all this different information. So let's go ahead now and hook up our Feig reader so you can see that same thing, along with a different format for this data as it's being captured. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my Zebra reader and jump back over to the configure form. And now I need to configure my Feig reader to the same destination, really. So I'll go ahead now and select a new process. This is called the Feig MR102 and the HF. We're going to select the Feig reader as the source, which is our packing station. Select the destination to be, again, the custom endpoint. In this case, I'm going to select a different report file just so you can see how the data comes out differently. I'll go ahead back to the samples folder, and I'm going to say keyboard EPC only. And then in this case, I only have one field to marry up, just the EPC. So for these HF tags, all I'm grabbing is that tag identifying value and entering it into the application. And again, that's all I want to configure here. So I'll jump back over to start, stop. Let me start all the readers. So this is going to start up my Zebra FX9600. It also starts up the MR102 unit, this HF scanner. And now let's go into a different application. I created a simple web form here called an asset checkout form. And I'll go ahead and maybe enter my name, location. So imagine this is something that you internally use within your business for capturing assets that maybe are taken out of a stock room or something like that. And it's a simple web form that's currently being used, and it would previously require users to maybe type in what they're checking out and taking out of their environment. In my case now, I've turned on my keyboard wedge for this Feig unit, and what I'm going to do is actually take a big bundle here of 10 HF tags, and I'll go ahead and place it on the pad. And you can see it immediately reads those 10 tags. It shows us the asset count, and I actually have another bunch of these 10 tags, and I'll go ahead and toss them on the pad as well too. And you can see it immediately scans the next 10 that I placed on the pad for scanning into this this form. I can also take these same tags, jump them back over to Notepad, and do the same thing. Capture the same tag data, in this case HF tags, that I'm scanning right into this application. I have the UHF reader still running, the FX9600. I can take those UHF tags as well and place them in front of the other antenna, and I'm capturing that tag data into Notepad. Finally, I did create what looks to be legacy piece of software that maybe a company would be using. It's just a Windows application for packing products into a package. So again, imagine this is an application that was developed internally. Maybe this developer is no longer available to update this application, or you'd like an easier way of utilizing RFID into this application for capturing package information as your or product information as you're packing a box. So maybe you're shipping something out and you want to capture, and you previously maybe did this with a keyboard and you just typed in what's going into this package before it gets shipped out. Or maybe you could even have had a dummy barcode scanner that you scanned into this as well. You know, you had it connected to this PC via USB, capturing barcode information. Now you can actually upgrade that further to UHF or HF RFID. In this case, I'll take the HF tags, place them on the pad again, and you can see it immediately scans 10 and then following 20 HF tags into this application, at which point I could go ahead and process this shipment. It allows me to take this application, which may not have been touched in a long time, a legacy piece of software, and build on top of it to add, in this case, HF scanning, but it could be UHF as well, into this application. Maybe to quickly add these technologies, UHF scanning, HF scanning, into existing systems, or even new systems like maybe this web form here that you wouldn't necessarily be able to integrate UHF scanning or HF scanning into. This gives you the capability to do that with these different devices. A couple of things I'd like to note that we do for this feature, that we added for this feature. If I go back to ClearStream, sometimes with this feature, you'd want the ability to control when the readers are turned on. So imagine it's a workstation again, where you're scanning product, but you're only doing it for a limited time. You may not necessarily want the scanner on all of the time because maybe somebody walks by with a UHF tag. You don't necessarily want it typing into maybe something else you're working on your PC. You want to control that when it's active. So you can actually make it so that ClearStream will minimize to the system tray, even start minimized, so you can have this application start up in its system tray as opposed to a full Windows application here, so that if you wanted to have it maybe start with Windows, so when you boot up your PC, it's automatically running in the system tray, you can do that and you can have it start minimized. But when it's minimized, you have access to the application from the system tray to start and stop it. I'm actually sharing the wrong monitor here, but you're able to right click on the icon, hit start readers and stop readers. So you give it the ability to control that when you're working on your workstation here and you want to start scanning tags into this application, you can then enable your reader, put the cursor here, scan those tags, and then you can turn off the reader. So it gives you that flexibility of being able to control when these tags are being scanned for, because you may be working on something else, and you don't necessarily want tag data that's accidentally placed in front of one of these readers to be input into that text area or whatever you're working on. All right, so I think that's everything I wanted to show for the RFID quick scan feature. With that, let me jump back over to the PowerPoint and see if you guys have any questions. Bear with me. So send your questions over in the question panel, and I'd be glad to answer anything that you guys may have. Bring those up here. Okay, it looks like our first question here. Does this work for all of the CS supported devices? Yeah, like I mentioned, if you go through that list there, every one of the devices that works within ClearStream RFID can be supported with this feature. So anything you can enter on that source side, you can map to the keyboard emulation, this quick scan feature. Even the RFID emulator, and actually let me just show you guys that quickly. I'll hop back out of this and go back into ClearStream, which is in my system tray now. Hang on one sec. So the emulated option is actually a good way to really test this feature to show how it might work if you don't have any equipment. And just to illustrate that a little bit more, when you go to the configure, you can add the devices here, and you would select an emulated reader. So we could call this fake reader. And then what you do is you go to this tools and then virtual site survey option, and you build out your floor plan of how you might be using this. So you'd add floor space to this. You'd add your RFID reader as well as an antenna. So just imagine this is what I have set up here on my desk. I have an RFID reader like this FX9600 and an antenna. And then I have maybe a tag container, which might be a package. And then when this goes in front of this equipment here, it will read it and report it to that endpoint. So you can do this as well with the emulated environment for the quick scan feature. But anything that's supported, any one of these manufacturers that are supported in our devices list can be utilized in this RFID quick scan option. So any one of these different options you see here. Good question. Okay, question here, does this work with mobile RFID readers or just fixed? So this feature here works with just our fixed readers that we support within ClearStream RFID. And that's really the goal of the ClearStream RFID product, is to be able to take fixed passive readers for both UHF, HF, and BLE scanners and map them to some destination. In this case, it's a keyboard. However, we do have a product called Tracer Plus that I briefly mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that allows you to capture RFID tag data into a mobile application, our Tracer Plus application, that can capture it into a mobile form. And then we have a product that allows you to sync that data to a pre-existing system that's very similar to ClearStream, except it's mapping the Tracer Plus forms that you design for RFID into to a pre-existing system. So if you're looking to do mobile RFID, take a look at our Tracer Plus product. You can find that at tracerplus.com, and that allows you to, again, scan the RFID tag data with a mobile application and then sync that data to a pre-existing system. As far as ClearStream, it works with different fixed devices. So again, Zebra FX9600s, the Zebra devices, the Feig devices, Impinj, anything like that. Those passive readers is where ClearStream is used for mapping that to a pre-existing system. Okay, I have another question here. Can you demo how to upload in a DB? Yeah, sure, I can set that up really quickly for you. So I go back to ClearStream, which I'm going to just close this out. So here, I've got ClearStream open again. I can set up, say, this FX9600 to go to a database as well. So I could have it go to the custom endpoint for the text output or the keyboard output, But I could go ahead and actually have it go to a different location as well. If I go to select my FX9600, which is the room 100 reader, and then on the destination side, rather than selecting that custom endpoint, I can select ODBC or SQL Server. SQL Server goes directly to a Microsoft SQL Server database. But ODBC, if you have an ODBC driver available, can go to anything like Oracle, Microsoft Access, SQL Server, things like that. Anything where there's an ODBC driver available. So you'd select ODBC. You then select the database you'd like to sync it to. Now, just to note, ClearStream RFID does come with a sample database. It's a Microsoft Access database that's provided with the installer right here, so I can go ahead and select that. When you select the database, if you need to enter a username and password, you do that, and then it shows the tables, stored procedures that are inside of that database that you can map to. So one of the samples that comes with ClearStream is the RFID tag list, which is just a simple table for RFID scanning. If I reset the mappings, now I have this FX9600, which is set up on, and my source of data again is mapped up to this RFID tag list table, which happens to be a Microsoft Access database table. So now every time a tag is read, it's both actually going to output it as keyboard data, and it's also going to send it to this database table here for capturing in the database as well. So again, it's this middle software that's grabbing tag data from the reader and posting it to your database. So I hope that helps, but good question. Another question here, actually, does this work with CS Onboard? Yeah, so that's a great question. I didn't go through ClearStream Onboard today. So ClearStream Onboard is our embedded application that runs on the reader itself. So it's a piece of software that you actually install on, say, an FX9600. It reads and collects data locally before sending it to an endpoint. So it gives you some extra features like resiliency of your data. If you lose network connectivity to this ClearStream application here, it'll keep and continue to store data locally on the reader itself, and then batch over the tag data when that network connectivity is available. So this feature actually does work with that. What you would do is when you're setting up the devices, you would select the onboard option. So you go ahead and select the onboard option and then map the onboard reader to the keyboard destination. So now I'd add an additional process here. We'll call it onboard quick scan. Select that onboard reader, and then again, select the custom data endpoint, select the keyboard sample you'd like to use, and then make sure the sender is just keyboard emulation. So now this onboard reader is actually hooked up as a keyboard wedge to our PC here. This probably isn't the most common setup, but it is definitely doable. ClearStream Onboard, like I mentioned, can batch data over, so you don't necessarily know if when it's going to be coming, only because if the network connectivity is down, since it's installed remotely, it will send it over when it can, and at that point, it will put that tag data into wherever your cursor is blinking on your PC. Any other questions? I don't see any here just yet. Okay, I'll bring the PowerPoint back up, but please send any questions you guys may have on over. I'd be happy to answer anything additional that you guys send out. Okay, well, again, and if you do have questions, send them over. I'll stop and kind of answer them for you. But if we hope you enjoyed the webinar today. Again, we always thank you guys for taking time out of your days to join us to take a look at these features. Okay, I have another question that came up. Can you specify which PC each antenna can send data to? Are you able to strip data off based on the report? Can you generate your own reports? Okay, so good couple questions there. Maybe to answer the second part there, can you generate your own ports? Now, actually, there's a follow-up question here. Does it support JSON? So yes, it does. So let me hop back out of the PowerPoint. So these reports are completely customizable by you. So the software we give you, the installer, comes with a couple different samples. So you can use these samples, and you can also open these up and modify them yourselves. So you can create completely custom ones, and we actually do even provide a JSON sample here that allows you to send JSON data to a web service. So the presentation for today was to go to a keyboard endpoint to type data in, but you can also send it to a web service by simply changing the sender option here. The sender right now is set to keyboard emulation hid, but if I go to endpoints, I can change it to a URL. And in which case, any tag data that's captured by the reader and sent to the destination can be formatted as JSON data as per what you need. So you can customize that report, and then it can send it to that URL. So if you were to add that URL endpoint here, you can set the endpoint to whatever you'd like, http/whatever. You can set the verb here for how it's being sent to that destination, content type, any header values, username, password. So now you can get tag data formatted in JSON, sent to a web service endpoint, and then you can do with whatever you need to on your side for processing that tag data. So a very good question there for customizing your own reports. And then just to add to the first question there, because I kind of merged the two, are you able to strip data off based on the report? You can't really strip data off of the report. It's really going to format whatever is captured on the reader to the destination. But if you mean, can you filter data that's being sent over to the destination? Yes, on the source side, you can set filters so that you can only send tag data to your application that might match the EPC values maybe you're expecting. So you could do something like EPC like 1234 with a %, which basically means when this FX9600 reads tags, only send tag data that starts with 1234 as keyboard data over to my custom endpoint here. So you can set filtering. So I hope that answers your question there. That's how you could kind of strip data that you don't want to capture before it hits your endpoint. A question here about how many readers will connect to this software. There is no real limit on the number of readers that you can add to ClearStream. So you can add really as many as you'd like. You might consider breaking up. You can break up your profiles based on the number of readers here if you have a large number. So here you can see I have profile 1, which is all of my readers, but you can break those up into different logical groups based on your environment. So you might have warehouse 1 versus warehouse 2, but there is no technical or hard limit for the number of readers. You might want to consider if you're in a very, very high tag or high scan rate environment, you might need to consider that if you have a very large number of readers as well. But there is no hard limit within ClearStream as to how many you can configure. A question here about it's a point maybe GPIO port connections. Yes, ClearStream RFID supports the ability to turn on GPOs, general purpose outputs. So you can power light stacks or buzzers based on the activity of the reader, as long as the reader has those GPIO or general purpose input output block on it, so that you can attach those peripherals. You can also configure the readers to start scanning based on a GPI port, a general purpose input port, that you could put like a button next to your reader or a photo eye or a light sensor or a motion sensor, something like that to start the scan. So it's another way of actually controlling when the scanner is actually actively scanning for tags. You can hook up like a button or something like that. And ClearStream will allow you to configure that as the trigger for your read, and then you can define the read length that it will be scanning for tags. So you can have it once the user presses a button, it scans for 10 seconds, scans everything that they're looking to scan, enters it into your form, and then it stops scanning at the end of those 10 seconds. Okay, if there's no more questions, again, thank you all for joining us on these webinars. We hope that they're helpful for you, a kind of feature-focused deep dive into a single feature, just to show you guys some of the capabilities of ClearStream and how it might fit into maybe projects that you're working on, applications that you may have. where you'd like to leverage some of these different technologies and utilize something that doesn't require programming for fixed RFID, UHF, HF, and BLE beacons. Here's our contact information. So if you do have any questions after the webinar today, and I always encourage everybody to just take a look at the software if you haven't downloaded it yet. Again, you can use all of the features that I showed you today in the free trial. So if you have any questions as you're testing out the software, seeing how it might fit for some projects that you're working on, reach out to us on the contact information here. I'd also like to note that we have what's called open office hours, which is a great way for you guys to reach out to the engineers here at PTS with any questions you may have. It's kind of an open forum to log in, raise your hand to ask a question, and the PTS engineer will help you, guide you in answering that question and maybe showing you some real world examples as to how to kind of set up what you're looking to do. So with that, again, thanks everyone for having for joining us on the webinar today, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.